Okay, we are live and I can see that people are starting to join, so that's great. So thank you everyone for joining the last session of the bootcamp. It's a little bit bittersweet for me that these sessions are wrapping up because it's been a constant in my life these last few weeks. So it's been nice to check in with you every day at 4 p.m. So I'll miss that. But I'm really excited that we've seen almost 100 of you sign up to all of the different 8 sessions. So, it's really great to see that you have found the topics valuable, and a lot of you have gotten in touch as well on social media or by email. So thank you so much, really appreciate it. And we have been lucky to get some great speakers throughout. So that's just like a big, happy kind of thank you for everything. I wanted to share my screen just for a couple minutes. And if you have been on these sessions before, you'll know what I'm going to say. But essentially, you know that this session is the last one of the support program called the Bootcamp, and that's part of the Buy Social Scotland campaign. We are going to be promoting social enterprises to consumers in the lead up to Christmas. So if you have a product or service or an experience that kind of fall under the ethical gifts category, then I'm interested to chat to you. And I'm also excited that quite a few of you have gotten in touch about this. So thank you so much. And I will follow up with you by the end of the week if I haven't yet. So bear with me, and I'm excited to see how I can feature and promote you. A little bit of a housekeeping note as well, but as you know, all of the recordings of the 8 bootcamp sessions and PDF recaps with the best practices that were shared and links to go further will be with you all next week. So whether you sign up for one session or several, then don't worry, you can catch up with all of the really good content that we've been sharing, and I will have all the contact details of the speakers in there as well. So talking about speakers, today we have a really, really good lineup. So I hope you're excited. I certainly am. We are talking about how to launch a campaign online. What is the roadmap that you should be thinking about? What are the kind of content assets that you should be making? How to crowdfund if you're planning to maybe launch a new product or service or initiative and you want to go the crowdfunding route. And we'll also give you a beginner intro to online and social ads, which I'm super excited about because I don't know a lot about it. So I think I will definitely be learning today. In terms of our speakers, we have Brenda Roddy with us. She's been with Crowdfunder for about 2 years, and essentially she's a mentor and a coach there. So she accompanies individuals and organizations through the crowdfunding process to make sure that people can run a successful campaign, that they meet their funding goals, and that they can achieve their ambitions. So really great to have you, Brenda, with us today. We also have Kay Symington. She is the founder of Paved with Gold, and it's a creative marketing agency with 6 years under its belt. Essentially, they've done a ton of super successful campaigns, whether that's more marketing or content campaigns, but also a lot of crowdfunding campaigns. So Kay, she has a ton of first-hand experience helping small brands and organizations, and bigger ones too, to basically develop a strategy that works, run a good campaign, and develop lots of content that resonates with online audiences. And finally, I'm really delighted that we have Sarah Dyer with us. She's a freelance marketer and she operates under the nickname Valley Gal. So she has a really, really great track record with retail brands and a ton of experience when it comes to e-commerce, marketing, online advertising. So I'm really excited to see what she shares with us today. I am sure there will be lots of practical tips that we can all take away, even if we have like a small campaign to run or we want to test things with Facebook ads, that sort of thing. So that's going to be great. I'll stop sharing my screen now, and I will say again a big, big thank you to all of our speakers for making the time to join us and for sharing all of their insights. Don't hesitate to write questions in the chat as we go along, and I will hand over to Brenda for our first presentation.
The first trick is to unmute. So, okay, everybody. Hello, I'm Brenda, and I'm one of the Crowdfund Scotland coaches. Like many people here today, I've got my own micro business in tourism in Burnham, and I've also run a number of crowdfunder campaigns myself. But as a crowdfunder coach, I've coached hundreds through the crowdfunder journey. That's a mixture of businesses, social enterprises, charities, all kinds. So hopefully I can bring you some experience today. I'll be giving you top tips as I go through. So let's just jump in. Oh, now I'm just wondering. Oh, there we go. It's a slightly different button. Okay, I mentioned I'm part of Crowdfunder Scotland, okay? And we are the Scottish element of Crowdfunder, and we're paid for by European funding. So thank you, Leader, for paying for my job. I'll be here until the end of January. And Crowdfunder UK, crowdfunding has really, really taken off in general. We're one of the biggest companies. And since we set up 8 years ago, people who've worked with us have brought in something like £110 million. They brought in something like 200,000 projects, and we have about 300 new projects go up on our website every single day. So one of the good things about that is it's really diverse. We work with every type of organization and individual. And whatever your project idea is, there's a very good chance somebody has done something like it or had the same kind of campaign that you have in mind. So one of the links that you'll get from today is to our projects database. And I would always say a very good starting point is go and have a really good nosy at what everybody else has done, because you'll quickly learn what a successful crowdfunding project looks like and also what an unsuccessful one looks like. So go and have a look. Okay, crowdfunding in a nutshell. It's all down to, it starts with coming up with a good project idea, business, charity, whatever your project idea is, and you go to the crowdfunder homepage, and there you decide what kind of project to set up, and you start to create a page. It's quite simple. It's just 7 clicks, and you're in there from start to finish. It's crowdfunding, like all fundraising, is all about telling a story. You're basically saying, we've got a problem, we've got a solution, and you, the crowd, the public, are kind of the jam in the middle who can make it all come together. So it's all about telling a good story. And the next bit is you come up with a series of rewards that people can get in return for donating to your project, whatever that project is. Then you've got all your ingredients there. You hit the go live button when you're ready, and then you share the link to your webpage out to all of your network. And if people like the story that you tell, the project that you have, and the rewards that you have, they'll tell their friends and they'll buy your rewards. And that's how you crowdfund. That's it in a nutshell. Now, you'll have heard of different types of crowdfunding. You may not even have recognized what they were. Over to the right-hand side, some people do it for equity because they've got a company and they need to grow it. And they might go out to the crowd and say, would you like to buy shares? We don't really do that. Companies like Indiegogo and lots of others do. They're very good at it. Sometimes people go out to the crowd, and instead of going to the bank to borrow money, a lot of people now go out to the crowd and say, can you lend us some money? Again, that's not really what we do, but some people crowdfund to get community shares. Maybe a community wants to take over a hotel or something to run it. And that way people can buy shares. What we kind of specialize in is part of it is donations. You've probably seen things on Facebook and your pals maybe doing a bungee jump off the Forth Road Bridge, and they're saying, can you make a donation? We do that as well. That's a really common type. But the stuff that we kind of focus on is what we call rewards-based crowdfunding. And that's where the majority of our projects lie. Now, at this stage, you're going, what is rewards-based crowdfunding? I'm going to talk you through that. The idea is that, as well as instead of just giving a donation for no reason, you get something back in return. And the reason that we do that is we've found over time that the number of people who support your project is going to be much higher if you have rewards associated with it. And also the amount that they're prepared to donate tends to be much higher with a rewards-based page. So that's why we focus on that. So we'll encourage people to set a page up, and you'll have maybe 5 or 6 different rewards on at any one time. But you can have a lot of fun creating different rewards and changing them during the lifespan of your project. A lot of people say, well, I don't have anything that I could actually put up as a reward. But the most common type is whatever product or service that you have. I had a quick look at the attendees here today, and just glancing at you, most of you have got something that people would like to pay for. So a very basic example is if somebody was opening a cafe and they needed to raise money for it, possibly to recover from COVID, they would say, if you donate £10 to my project, I'll send you a voucher and you can come in and get a cup of tea and a bun. And that it's as simple as that. You can do it around all kinds of services as well. If you're a hairdresser, outdoor activities, whatever, you can have experiences where people sell tickets to concerts, online comedy shows. We always say to people, be really creative. And you can have some people come in, some people, the higher end rewards. Sometimes companies will buy those because they want to buy something for the community, or they want to have their name on something. At the other end of the spectrum, some people want to support your project, but they don't really have much money, so they just want to put in a couple of quid, and you can give them a shout out on Facebook or on an album cover, whatever it is that you want to do. So that's basically what reward-based crowdfunding is. Now, one of the questions is, well, why would you bother with crowdfunding? Why don't I just go out and get a grant? One of the things I found this running crowdfunders and also speaking to project owners, it's more than just the money. The money's great, but one of the other things you get is a crowdfunder is a good safe space to test out whatever your business idea is. You can put your various products or services up as rewards, and you'll get a very quick indication from people which ones they like, which price points they like. If you find that raspberry isn't selling, maybe you go in and put more blueberry. So it's a very good safe space to try your idea out. It can also test your marketing as well as your products. It's a really big marketing campaign. When you run a successful crowdfunder, by the end of it, you'll be so tired of hearing about your project, and so will everybody that you know, to be honest. So it's a really worthwhile marketing campaign that I found a lot of businesses go on to apply further down the line as well. When people are inspired to buy your reward or support your crowdfunder, if they've reached out and picked up their wallet, we find they tend to be long-term supporters. They tend to be advocates because they feel that they've invested in your project, they follow you. They often refer you through word of mouth as well. So you tend to get long-term followers. And you'll very probably learn a lot of new skills because I'll talk you through some of the skills you'll need in a minute. But even as coaches, we're constantly learning new things, how to optimize your page, a lot of IT skills. And the last one is about extra funding and support. As well as having us as coaches, we've got a team of people who go out and work with the private sector and the public sector to see if they want to come in with any match funding. Because we will always have partners who say, if you come across any projects that are about maybe women in enterprise or climate change, ethical, whatever it is, they'll sometimes say, can you flag them up? And if they align with what we're doing, we might be able to come in with match funding. So I think we're the only crowdfunder platform that does that. So that's some of the benefits to crowdfunding. Now, I keep getting this dunky dunk noise and I'm not sure why. There we go. Okay, the three things that you need, the three ingredients we say for success are having a good team, having a good network, and having a good story. So running a crowdfunder, you can do it on your own, but it's a lot easier if you have other people around you because you've got quite a varied skill set that you'll need. One is you need somebody who's going to drive the project, take responsibility for it. You need somebody that's probably good at nagging everybody to do things in time, somebody who can maybe work an Excel sheet. A project that has a video is twice as likely to be successful. People respond really well to videos. Often we say keep them 2 minutes or less, record them on a smartphone. They can be quite basic, but it's really useful if you can parachute somebody in for that particular task. Storytelling is everything in a crowdfunder. And so if you've got somebody who's good at writing copy and can do it very succinctly, they're a real asset to your team. Creating the page is fairly straightforward, but again, somebody needs to take that task on. That's a one-off task. And marketing is everything in this, as you'll find out in the next two presentations. You need somebody who's got the skills to get the information far and wide as possible. And particularly social media can be a very valuable tool. So if you've got somebody, you may not be a whiz at social media yourself, but if you know somebody who usually has their nose glued to a phone, they're the kind of person that can really help you. So we've talked about your team. Now let's talk about your network, because if you want to raise £1 million, but you've only got 10 people following you on Facebook, it's not going to happen. Okay, so what we say is it's the same principle as going on a sponsored walk on your way. You start off with the people that you know best, and then you work your way out. And you have to sit down and think about who are all the people who could possibly be interested in funding my project. And we'd say start with your family and friends who wants to know what you're doing. If you carry out this exercise with your staff and the rest of your team, you'll automatically get all their input. Look at your customers. Who all has shown some kind of interest in what you're doing? Try and capture this. Start with a mind map, but then maybe work onto an Excel sheet. Look at in your community. Communities tend to be very supportive of people running crowdfunders. Are there other businesses that you work with? Are there suppliers that you work with? Are there partners? And this is one of the tips. When you're running, you will have a certain number of people who follow you. And I would say to people, first of all, see how many you have at the start of your crowdfunder, and then track how many people you have at the end and how many interactions, because it's such a brilliant marketing program. But you may only have a limited number of followers, but you'll find some other people that you work with who've got a lot more. So for example, in our tourism business, we've got 1,000 or so, but then I know our local tourist association has 2,000. And so I would contact them and say, would you mind sharing some of my posts and my social media posts? I would contact the moderator of that page and get them on board with me. And then I would look around and say, who else in my sector is interested? I would maybe go to the council. I would go to Visit Scotland because they've got tons of supporters. So I would piggyback on them. So we always say to people, work on your network map, and then when you start to communicate with people, start with people you know best, work your way out, and make sure, ask yourself, how do these people get their news? And how can they share the information with other people? So you might phone your granny, but you might WhatsApp your brother or sister. So pick the right tool for the job. The last bit is telling the story, and it's all about a project page. Now, go and have a really good nosy at all of our project pages. The critical key elements are getting a short, snappy title. As you'll see at the top, this is a social enterprise down in Haddington. It's easy to remember. They've got a nice short video. We always say, make it short, get their attention in the first 10 seconds, because most people will look at your page on a smartphone. Again, tell your story down the left-hand side of the page. Use lots of images. Format the text. Again, slap them up the face with the first paragraph in a nice way, because that's where you grab their attention. And then on the right-hand side of the page, that's where you put a list of rewards, starting from the cheapest ones to the more expensive, and try and get really creative with that. Another tip is set the right target. Be realistic. We always say it's better to set a modest target that you can achieve than to set a really ambitious target with lots of zeros and then underachieve it, because that's just disheartening. Another top tip we tell everybody is never go live at 0%. Those people that you know best, speak to them, work out who's most likely to come in and fund your project, and say, have a quiet word with them before you go live and say, would you mind coming in on day one so we can open with a bang? And that way people will automatically associate you with success, and you've launched with a real buzz. So that's one of the things. If you can't find 10% of your target before you go live from the people that you know well, it tells you you need to go back and do more work on your network map and a bit more research. So, right, I've come in. I didn't want to go on for too long, and I don't want to steal the thunder from the other two. So if you need any help, that's what we're here for. Just drop us a line. And I'm going to pass on to the others.
Thank you so much, Brenda. That was great. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say I need to learn how to stop sharing, and I'm now going to mute myself so you can.
No, you did great. We are all on the learning curve with Zoom and Google Hangouts and Microsoft Teams and whatever I can think of. So you did great. Thank you. Honestly, that was super, super informative. And everyone, in case you are wondering, we will have the slides from Brenda, and she also shared some great resources with me. So don't worry, I will share all of that. If you have any questions for Brenda, please pop them in the chat now, as I'll go to her first for the Q&A at the end. She has to leave at 5 on the dot, and I am sure we will run a little bit over today. So without further ado, let's go to Kay from Paved with Gold. Thank you so much, Kay.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Jess. Right, I'm just going to start to share my screen. Can we all see that? Okay, yes, perfect. So hello, yes, thank you for the wonderful introduction. That was better than I'm going to do. But yeah, so I come to you from Pave with Gold, and we have done many crowdfunding campaigns over the years. We've been crowdfunding since 2012, so it's been a long time, and the journey has changed quite a lot along the way. But everything that Brenda said there was nodding along furiously, because regardless of platform, it applies. Like, all of that is great common sense. It's also quite a lot of things that, even if you're not doing a crowdfunding campaign, it's stuff that you apply to just running a regular campaign, really knowing these sorts of things. So what I'm hopefully going to do now is take you through all of the things that you need in terms of content, community, audience, to help you through your campaigns. And now I'm going to get the bonk bonk thing, aren't I? There we go. So yeah, so Pave with Gold, we're all about launching ideas and building brands. We typically work with product-based businesses, so makers who make something, who want to get their ideas out into the world. From gadget kits for kids to doorbells to make work. So we also work across platforms. So the first one you saw there was Kickstarter. The second one was a Seeders campaign, which is one of the equity campaigns that Brenda mentioned. This one was MakeWork, which was a Patreon. So it's a completely different model, where it's a subscription model. And we helped Circus, Artspace and Creative Inverness launch with a crowdfunder campaign. And we are also crowdfunding mentors across these different things. So we've done lots and lots of different things, and these are some of the tips that we've picked up across the years. And look, each campaign is a story. Like, I just love that, like, we just completely were agreeing on that one. And I'm going to skip through this bit, because obviously now we know the story is told in these brilliant ways. It's with the video, the description, the rewards even can be part of the story that you tell. They can help you get the essence of what you want to do, and through project updates as well. So that's like kind of an email straight to your backers. But before any of this, before choosing to do a crowdfunding campaign, before choosing what you're going to do, it's so important to understand who your audience are. And that's the network that Brenda was talking about. But this is more in a sort of, if you're setting up like a brand, or you've got a product that you're looking to launch and you want to know who it's for, or you're setting up like a completely different thing from what you normally do. And what you really need to do is really understand who it's for. And so what we do is we start by thinking about dividing them up into categories. It's not just 18 to 35-year-olds. It's actually, who are those 18 to 35-year-olds? What motivates them? Where are they? And what sorts of things are they interested in beyond your product? So it's good to really understand then what's important to you and your business. So before launch, one of the things that we do is we find similar projects. So that could be, you know, it's really important to me to have sustainability in my business. It's really important that we're reaching out to a different audience, and thinking about the associated businesses that you have with that. So I would go out and I would search for these similar projects. I would see what their stories that they're sharing online. I would look at where they're sharing those stories. I would look at how their audience responds to them. And I would look at who has covered them already. You know, have they had any press? Have they had any bloggers? And it's sort of like a research phase before, so you can go and kind of look who's kind of paved that path for you, because they've done the hard work. So you can start to say, okay, well, I know now that that journalist is interested in this sort of story because they covered this project before. I know that this post didn't do that well on Facebook, but this one did. So you can actually start to look at their social presence as well, and develop a campaign and strategy based on that. And partnerships are a really big thing as well. So have a look at who they've worked alongside, because it could mean that you know, they've maybe partnered with like another organization that could open things up for you. sorry, this is a project that we worked on called Fuzzle, who were a furniture brand. And to begin with, they needed to have an identity, and they needed to really understand what businesses they aligned with. So this is just an example of how you can think about businesses beyond yours. So this is a furniture brand, but actually they shared a lot of values with Aesop, which is a cosmetics brand, and with Folk, who are a clothing brand, and Patagonia, who are another sort of sports brand. So these are all established businesses. They're all doing different things. And it doesn't have to be a big brand like these are. It can be another organization. So with Creative Inverness, for instance, they looked at Creative Dundee, and we looked at Creative Stirling, and we looked at the different models that they had applied and how they spoke to their audiences and what had worked for them. And again, what kind of content do they share? What does it look like? What sort of level do you need to be working at? Like, you know, if do you need to hire a professional photographer, or is something that can be done in-house? And then press as well. So yes, it could be typical press, like you know, the Telegraph or the Guardian, but also it could be looking at Instagrammers and where they've been featured online before. The other good thing with that is you could also start to say, okay, well, actually they've not done anything on YouTube, for instance, but they have done a lot of work on Instagram. So it starts to make you think, well, actually, maybe they've tested these other channels and moved away, and their focus has become fully on Instagram or fully on Twitter. And you can start to, again, learn from what other people have done. And then this is who endorses them. So whether it be a band or a shop or a network, an organization. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about ways to build your community. The way that we work is like, we think really holistically about a project. So whether it's just about reaching their goal on a crowdfunding campaign, what we want them to do is then be able to have something that lasts for like 10 years after. It's not just about doing a campaign, it being successful and then it's done. It's about helping them build something of real quality. So what we like to do, and it's really valuable, it's a part of that network, to build that community that's going to push them through to the end of the crowdfunding campaign, but then last beyond, because they become advocates, they become excited about your project. And so we kind of look at projects in terms of the content that they can share with people. Social media is a great way, as Brenda said, of reaching people. But actually what you want to do is create like a real connection with those people beyond just posting things on a channel. You want to draw them into you and have that one-to-one conversation. And one way that's not exactly one-to-one, but it's a lot closer, is newsletters. And it's something that we really want to encourage people is to build their newsletter list, because a rule can change on Instagram and you've built your business on it, and then it creates problems, or Facebook, and the same for all social media channels, is it beholden to someone else. But at least apart from GDPR rules, you own your mailing list and you can communicate with those people basically one-to-one. And also anything that creates a link that people can then go straight back to your website from. So you can link people where you want them to go. So that's why we always think newsletters are really powerful. And then the other side of that is to fuel that. How do you fuel a newsletter with content? We do that through blogs. So here's some examples of blog content that you can create that's beyond just talking about what you're doing over and over. Because it's like you're like, I know that I have these values, and I know that there's these things that matter to me in my business, but then here's ways that you can kind of draw people in using them. So of course, the first thing that you'd really want to think about is the behind the scenes stuff. So still kind of product focused, but what are people going, like what can you show people that they don't get to see ordinarily? Is it, do you make something? Do you want to show them how it's made? Do you want to like show how a process, how something comes together? If you're putting an event on, what's the behind the scenes story there? For one brand, we had created content for Facebook ads. Sorry, this is started off as a blog, and the idea was tips for parenting tips for like fun ideas. And I don't know if you've maybe heard of life hacks before, but what we wanted to do was create like a really fun, bright, kid-friendly life hacks aimed again at parents, which we had as blog posts initially, but then we packaged up into a PDF, which we used then to get leads from Facebook ads. So people could sign up for top parenting tips, and then they got this beautiful, bright coloured thing. And we worked in partnership with people in order to create that. So we worked with a kids illustrator who has a big network and runs a kids magazine. So then she was promoting the piece that we'd made. So it's all about creating stuff that can be shared farther and wider. We also knew our audience really well, and we knew that they really, really cared about, they had very limited time. They were really design aware. They were often worked in design themselves, and we knew that we wanted to target those types of parents. So we started to create content that was quick and easy to digest. And again, it was shared out across social media, but also went into our newsletter. And yes, this is just, and also inspiration for your project, like what's the story behind it, really getting into that. The other thing that we did is we did interviews, which was a really fun process. So when we started working with this project, we didn't have any prototypes whatsoever. They didn't have a product. They just had something that we had to convince lots of people that they wanted to buy. So we worked with people who we identified as influencers in that space, or people who were doing cool jobs but were parents, and it just happened that they were parents. So we did loads of interviews with them, and it was just five or six questions about their daily routine. So we interviewed Sean Keaveney from Six Music, Matas, who's a toy designer. We interviewed Donna Wilson, who's a knitwear designer. And all we did, actually, we didn't have connections with those people. We just emailed them and said, hey, would you be interested in doing this? We weren't asking them to endorse a product or our project. We were just asking them to do an interview. But what that did was then when we shared that interview on social media, then they were able to share it themselves, and then it opened our network up to a bigger network. So it's always looking about, if you're creating stuff, like how many different ways can I use this? And then your team, which is again what Brenda said, your team also should be celebrated and talked about, because the more that you talk about them, the more that they feel that they are part of the project and will share it with their networks when it launches. So this team is Tech Will Save Us, but each person comes to this their job with a network behind them. So if you're working in a team of 5 people, that's 5 people's networks that you can then get share things through. So they'll know 10 people, and then they'll know 10 people, and then they'll know 10 people, and then it just rolls from there. So obviously that's kind of stuff that you can create. And it's a lot of work to create that content, but it's definitely worth it. And we see time and time again that putting that effort in before you launch a campaign, this is before the campaign's even launched, to build that audience is so important. Especially quite often, we work with people who are maybe fresh out of university and don't have that network already. So we're helping them create it. So this is one way of doing it. And so then we can reach a wider audience. And we do that by building social proof with influencers. Now, I think when people hear influencers, they immediately think of protein shakes and makeup, and can't see beyond that. And we really focus again on that audience that we were talking before. We look and see who is going to influence that audience, what's important to them. And so with, again, this parenting brand, we knew it was important to show that parents had used it, even though we only had one prototype. So what we did is we arranged a morning where people could come with their kids, sit around and discuss the issues that they face as parents, to discuss the product itself and say why they thought it was good, what they liked about it. They could hold it in their hands, they could see the kids with it. And so we were able to get quotes from them and use them in the campaign, which added validation, I suppose, to what we were trying to do when something hadn't launched previously. But we also then spoke to experts. So where Tom was a product designer, he was not a sleep expert. we then reached out to Professor Colin Espy, who is the Chief Medical Officer at another startup called Sleepio, who was able to then speak to our audience about why the product that we had created was perfect for fixing kids' sleep problems, which we were able to use in the press release, on the Kickstarter page, and on the and throughout the campaign. And then press. Now, press can be really tricky, I think, especially during the pandemic. We have seen it's like press just takes a lot longer. So having a long lead in for sort of stuff like that is really advised right now. So, you know, if you are thinking about launching a project in 3 months, start to build your press lists and think about those specific journalists who are interested in what you're doing, and find them and start to reach out to them with the idea of your project, or ask them what's coming up, or follow them on Twitter and see what sorts of things they're talking about, because you want to create specific stories for them so that when it comes to launch, you've kind of warmed them up already. For instance, like a piece of press that I had started the conversation with the journalist in June has just come out now in October. So the lead-in times are really long just now. I think a lot of journalists have been furloughed or have been made, like how I've gone freelance, so they've not got that sort of churn that we're used to, having that fast-paced thing. So another tip for press as well is to think about different types of press. What that means, it's not always the Guardian, like I said earlier. It could be the local newspaper, which is probably more valuable than some national or international press, or maybe it's about a blogger for a specialist subject. If you're interested in sustainability or the circular economy, maybe it's seeking out experts in that space who have a platform. Press is really important because, again, it adds that credibility, that validation that you need, especially if you're just starting out as a new organisation or it's a new project entirely, and it helps you build future connections. This was our client who's very happy to be featured in Stuff magazine. I always put this GIF in because it just makes me smile. So I've got this kind of section in here and I've called it after Kickstarter, but really it's just like after a successful campaign. We have been so lucky in our times of doing all these projects that we've been able to really see what can happen next. So not only do you get press contacts for the future by completing a campaign like this, you've got validation for future investment. Now that might be that you can go to Creative Scotland, for instance, and say, look, we've tested this, we know we've got an audience for this, we've raised £9,000 of our own, we would like to now see if you can get some funding for us, or whether it's going to a further, like an angel investor, which we don't really have as much of here, but maybe it's just that sort of finding the right sort of investment or funding for you. You've now got validation for that. Ding, the doorbell that you saw earlier went from Kickstarter, where we helped them raise £50,000. I always say this wrong. And then they went on to raise $345,000 through Seeders because we had the validation of Kickstarter to start it off. So, you know, it's not necessarily about raising something huge in that first campaign, but it's about having that long-term plan in place. You could get the opportunity to get feedback from your community and just bring your community a bit closer to you. One of the projects that we advised on last year, Creative Sterling, they were opening up a new space. They had this incredible community around them already. And this project just helped them reach even more people, because those people in their community then went out and told their friends. And it was a real lot, like it was one of those projects where it was really special, where everyone got involved, and they ended up getting, they didn't get money for a new kitchen, but someone donated to them an entire kitchen from some big estate because they'd heard about the crowdfunding campaign. So it's not necessarily just about those funds, it's about more than that. And then opportunities for collaborations. When this little projector, I mean, and that is a little tiny projector, we got an email from HBO. Remember Girls HBO all those years ago? They got in touch and asked us to come and do an event in New York for them because we had just had such a good campaign. And it's just like, we've seen projects go into MoMA in New York. We've just seen the opportunities that something like this happens. And I think if you nurture and you create content and you create something that people want to get behind, then the opportunities are there to do more. And it's about thinking about it in that kind of bigger sense as well. So I'm going to take a deep breath, and in summary, you need to understand what you're making and who you're making it for. It helps you build a good reputation, bring everyone on board the journey with you, keep your community engaged, and amplify your story with press and influencers. Thank you.
That was great, Kay. Honestly, I loved it. And it's funny because you gave so many tips that I think go beyond just organizing the campaign itself. Tips about the rationale, tips about, I can see like in the chat, I was like, yes, this is a good tip. Yes, this is a good tip. So I said that 4 times, not overreacting at all. But yeah, that was great. So thank you so much. And sounds like you have worked on some amazing projects. So everyone, if you need some help with a crowdfunder, I think you know who to talk to. That's great. Thank you. Let's go to Sarah, and then we'll jump into the Q&A maybe around 5 p.m.
Great. Okay, guys, I'm just going to do the same and share my screen here. Okay. So, I'm Sarah. I'm a digital marketing freelancer. I've worked in digital for almost 10 years, mostly working for retail brands on the client side. I've done a little bit of work for agencies as well, but my kind of experience has been digital marketing across the board for e-commerce. So that includes paid, email, strategy, website, all that sort of good stuff. So now I'm a freelancer. I can help small business with website design and marketing strategy. So that's my job now. Today, we're just going to talk about some basics of Facebook ads because I know they can be terrifying. So we're just going to go through some of the basics that might be able to support a new campaign, a new product, or the launch of a new brand. Okay. So let's go back on. You might be asking why Facebook. So I got some of the latest stats from Hootsuite, which is a scheduling tool for social media. And this is their stats from July this year of the usage of social media channels worldwide. And the very top of the list you can see there is Facebook. So the list actually surprised me a little bit, but you can see that Facebook was the most used, followed by YouTube. People are in the house more, they're watching video more, and then third and fourth is WhatsApp and messaging. So obviously people are texting more, keeping in touch with their family. So if you're wondering why Facebook, the answer is basically right there. It's also a very affordable platform if you're just starting to advertise. And as we saw, your audience is most likely going to be on there. You can target a very specific person. So whereas things like Google Ads are very much based on keywords and search, Facebook is largely focused on just really honing in on a certain kind of person. Who they are, where they are, what they're interested in, their gender, their age. These can all be targeted through ads. It's a great way of supporting your organic content. So as Kay was saying, it's really important to build the foundations and build all that great content, all your blog pieces, all your posts, photo shoots, all the great good stuff that show who you are. You can use all those assets on ads very easily to continue the story. You get great insights and data. You can also retarget people who already come to your website very easily. So that is one of the big things I'll talk about in a little minute. And using Facebook ads, you can easily create what we call a sales funnel, which is a basic marketing sales funnel. Yep, it's scary. So I speak to a lot of clients and they think about using Facebook ads and they get a little bit intimidated because I will always suggest they use Facebook Ads Manager, which is a separate platform. And it can look quite complicated, but I would say before you start, I would do these 4 things. So if you want to give it a go, you've got to have these all nailed down. So as Kay had said before, you need to know your audience. Any business, product, service, you need to know who you're talking to. Who's your ideal client? Who's this product for? So by that, I mean, know the basics when you're starting, know their age, where they're based, and some of their interests and their gender as well. Those are the basic things that are important when it comes to running Facebook ads. Know your product's benefits, you know. You'll have a lot of hopefully brand work done before this. You know, you'll know your brand tone, you'll have copy that will, you know, speak to your audience and explain your product, explain the emotional benefits of the product, you know. It's going to make writing ads like a lot easier. And in this instance, as with all marketing, you're selling an outcome, you're not really selling a product. It's important to remember that when we write copy for ads. Create a Facebook Ads Manager account. So when you go on Instagram and Facebook, you'll see the option to promote posts. This can be done, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because actually you can still target people, a certain audience when you do this. If you are going to use this option, never ever choose the automated Facebook choice, like they'll automatically choose the best audience for you. This is not a great tactic, because Facebook just kind of want to be able to use your money as much as they can, and the best option is always to target an audience yourself. And if you have a website and you plan on running ads at some point in the future, set up a Facebook pixel as soon as you can. And there's loads of guidance on the Google machine to setting up a pixel. It's actually quite straightforward. A pixel is basically a little bit of code that you'll get from your Facebook ads account that you can put into the back of your website, and it basically will pick up the visitors that come to your website, and you can create ads to display to them later. So the basics of a Facebook campaign, if you're using Ads Manager, this is the little box that will pop up when you create a new campaign. So I'm just going to basically talk about what these 3 sections are and why I want to use them. Okay, so the first sort of section is awareness. So as we all talked about before, this is about creating the story. This is someone who's never seen your brand before. They're not aware of who you are. They are what we call a cold audience. So we're at this point, we're not selling anything. We're not getting anyone to download anything or things like that. We just want to make this audience aware who we are, what our values are within an ad. So we would choose an ad from this section here. And the call to action you're going to use, if you're going to put an ad through this section here, is learn more. You want the audience to click. That's the whole point. This is the first section, you want them to click on the ad. The second tier is consideration. This is where you can actually retarget people who've been to your website or clicked an ad before and show them a different message. You're going to offer them value within this section. And the call to action normally would be something like sign up, download now, get access, something a bit more, you know, they've already seen ads or seen your content elsewhere. You're going to try and get them to do something else. And the last section is conversion, where you want someone to convert. And this is largely used for e-commerce brands who will run ads that will show you products, or they will just show you images or video to get you to go to their store. This is the call to action of shop now. So we want them to act now. That's what we're going to do for those ones. So that's a very basic funnel. So you're taking someone from awareness, consider your offer, and then you're going to seal the deal through ads. So this is a kind of basic sort of sales funnel you could use to support your new launch, your new campaign for your brand. If you have a Kickstarter or a crowdfunder, you could use this sales funnel to do so through ads. So what I've kind of done is I've done a funnel to support your product launch using ads, but then taking that audience off of, you know, not owned media and onto owned media, which is your email list. So With your Facebook pixel in place on your website, you're going to run a brand awareness account ad to promote some sort of content you've already got. So Kay was talking about using really good content like blogs, that speak to your target audience. A great way of doing this is promoting a blog post through an ad like this. And your call to action would be learn more, something like that. You might see these as you actually scroll through Facebook. Or if you're not blogging yet, totally fine. You can use something else, something like, your brand imagery, use your brand language to introduce this brand new audience to who you are and what you're all about. So the whole aim of that campaign for brand awareness is to get clicks. We want people to click the ad so that they can go to your website, and we can then take that audience and retarget them later. So we're taking them from the top of the funnel, they're totally cold, and we're going to show them other content later on to get them to buy later. After we run this campaign, I would move this audience onto a retargeting campaign. So the people who have clicked this ad, you can put them into a new audience on Facebook to then show them this second ad that I'm talking about here, where we're going to retarget to this, what we call a warm audience. They're already aware, they've clicked an ad, or they've been to your website. It's also good to know that you can run a retargeting ad for people who have engaged on your Instagram page, they've liked your Facebook page. These are all examples of warmer audiences. So kind of ideas for this ad would be, you offer a download that can give them value. So they have to click the ad, give their email address, sign up, and that would then give you the option to email them later on. You get their details from there. If you're e-commerce, you might be offering a discount at this point. So maybe it'll be like 10% off if you sign up for our newsletter. Or at this point, you might be able to highlight an aspect of the crowdfunding campaign where you would get this product for this value, sign up to our newsletter to find more, something like that. You're going to try and get this audience to take the next step. So once we have that and we have a certain amount of leads from that on our email list, you can then move them off of this platform, which is Facebook ads, and you can start emailing them on a newsletter, as Kay explained. So this kind of supports what she was saying really well. Sharing valuable content like we talked about before, more about your product, more about the brand, just basically provide tons of relevant information as much as you can. So a good way of doing this is thinking of a series of emails, maybe 5 emails where maybe you're talking about certain things and you're giving them value, and then slowly but surely the last email you might be like, here's the crowdfunding campaign, here's the new product, here's the launch, that's the sell. So the first few emails maybe share more value, and then further down the sequence talk about product and to get them to convert. So that's just a sort of basic overview of how you can take people from ads as a cold audience, get them more interested in what your product is and your brand, your values, get them to do something, download something, get a discount code to then convert them either by email or straight to your website. So it's quite basic, but it can work for product launches, it can work for any kind of campaign, actually, not just crowdfunding, which is good. People always ask me about budgets because it's quite hard to know sometimes, what should I actually be spending? Like, should I be spending a lot? Should I not? The truth is, it's all dependent on your goals. So I would never say there's a right amount. It's all dependent on you and your product and your audience. But I would always advise to start with a small daily budget of like £5 to £10 and test to see how it goes. If you run it for a week, you can get significant data to then say, well, this budget works, it doesn't, and take it from there, and just adjust it as you go. It will actually allow you to easily scale things as well as you go along and see what's not working quite quickly, which is handy. But just to give you an idea from experience, most small businesses with under £1 million turnover will probably spend about £500 to £1,000 a month on Facebook ads. And that's certainly true for some of the clients I have just now. Measurement. So, okay, great. You ran your ads, you spent your money. Is it working? Well, these are some metrics that would be handy to know, because they can all look quite the same, and there's a lots of options to tick when you're an ads manager, so it can be quite confusing. These are some of the main ones I would say you need to understand to see if something's working. So again, it will be dependent on your goals, but these 4 will probably always apply to your campaign. So the metric of ROAS, which means return on ad spend. So that basically means that for every pound you spend on advertising, what are you getting back for it? It's the easiest way to explain it to a client. The industry average is £4 for every pound spent. So if you're running ads and you're only getting £2 or £3 back, well, the industry average is only 4. So you don't have much more to go to be reaching the average. To give you an idea, I still do work for a stationery brand, and we spend around £1,000 a month on Facebook ads, and we get a ROAS of 10. So if we spend £1, we get 10 back. And stationery products tend to be priced between £10 and £15, to give you an idea. Cost per result is a good one as well. So it shows you how much it costs you to acquire the sale. So basically we want to be looking for the lower the number, the better. So the least you're spending to acquire that sale. So lower numbers are good, really high is maybe not great, depending on how much your product costs. Click-through rate, very important. A good click-through rate is between 1% and 2%. So that just basically means that out of the percentage of people that have seen the ad, how many are clicking through. So a good one between 1 and 2, a great one over 2%. So it's actually quite low when you think about it, but that's quite a good way to benchmark it going forward. And CPC, so cost per click, you'll see that elsewhere on Google as well. And again, dependent on your product, a great benchmark is over under £1, sorry. So yeah, sorry, I've done that wrong way around. It's under £1 for a really good CPC. Okay, so that's kind of the basics. You'll have the slides so you can go through them in your own time, because I know it's quite confusing, but I would always just advise, if you've never used Ads Manager, go in and just have a play around, create some ads and see what you can see. There's plenty of other reading you can do, and these blogs I've listed here are good ones to go to that aren't too complicated and actually make sense, and will give you examples of ads and how to kind of create them. So Ad Espresso blog is great. Neil Patel, his blog is fantastic for all sorts of things, e-commerce and web, so SEO, anything like that. He uses blogs in a really straightforward way. It's easy to implement some strategies. It's free. And same with the WordStream blog. I would go on those 3 and just read up about everything you can. There's great courses out there as well for Facebook ads that you can take, and you can take them through Facebook itself as well. On my own website, I do have some downloads that you can have a look at there. I've just added one for how to run Facebook ads for certain lead types, which might help you more, including some other things that might be quite handy for you. So I'll put that there as well. And here's a little trick. So Facebook ad library has every single ad that's ever been really out there from bigger brands. So if your brand is similar to a big brand like Patagonia or something like that, you can actually go on and see what ads they've ran, if they've worked, if they've not worked. You can see very basic information about ads from bigger brands. Maybe not Patagonia, I think they came off Facebook a while ago for ads, but anyway, for good reasons. But yes, that's a very good place to go to have a nosy. And even yourself, go on websites that are similar to your brand. Are they do they send you an ad later on in the day? Are you on Instagram and then you mysteriously see an ad for shoes when you were looking at shoes? That means they're retargeting you in some way. What language are they using that made you click? Do you click through on ads? If you do click through on ads, think about why. What made you want to click through? Was it the imagery, the message? Think about all these things just when you're scrolling. I tend to just save things as I go. But yeah, hopefully that's a good starting point for you. And just any questions, just go ahead and ask.
Thank you, Sarah. That was really great. I personally learned a lot, and I loved your tip about the Facebook ad library. I've actually just said in the chat, I'm going into it a lot at the moment to try and look at examples from other brands. And it's actually really nice to just be able to like be nosy and type a brand that you like and actually see which assets, which copy, which format they're running currently on Facebook and Instagram. Great tip. That was great. Thank you so much. A quick note, everyone. Obviously, it's 5. We hope we can stick around for some questions. Don't worry if you saw Brenda leaving the webinar today. I will catch up with her and I will record her answers to all of the questions you had for Brenda, and I'll go and stitch that into the video recording. So no worries on that one. And there are a couple questions for Brenda, I think that Kay can help us with. So let's jump in, and I have quite a few on my list, so let's do a few, and I don't want to keep you guys too long, obviously, so we'll see how we go. So one of the interesting questions that I saw in the chat was about rewards, and potentially I think you would be good to answer this question. So on the different kind of campaigns that you've run, do you see kind of any trends or in terms of what people buy the most of? So maybe in the pricing of the rewards, or maybe in the type of the rewards, what kind of rewards do you usually recommend your clients to look at?
So I think, first of all, it's so easy to get carried away with rewards because you think, I need to do loads of different things that I don't normally do. And first of all, what we say to everyone is just do it really simply, like focus on what you're offering. So say it's an event that you're bringing people to, what things can you offer at that event that make it more premium? Or like if it's a product, we get people to focus on an early bird, like a cheaper version of that product, then a normal version, and then maybe some sort of digital download, and then some sort of like really deluxe top level versions. So we try and say between 5 and 7 rewards, like don't do any more. Have different pricing levels. So have one that's maybe £5 that's just like a digital download that you're not having to post anything out or anything like that people can just put a little bit more money in the hat. Then focus on like that sort of mid-tier. Usually rewards that are under £100 are less, they're a bit more of an impulse purchase, because obviously if you're spending £100, it's a bit more of a considered spend. So have a couple that are below that if what you're selling is super expensive, and then whatever pricing your product is. And then the highest one could be an experience. So it could be something like, I was speaking to someone yesterday who makes musicals for kids, and it's like little musical packs, and one of the rewards that we were talking about for them is something that they could have the kids create their own musical theme, and they'll have the whole reward created for them. So it's like a bit of personalization, a bit of that. I'll stop going on, but yeah.
That's really good, and I think it's quite practical tips as well for people to look at 5 to 7 rewards between £5 and £100. And if you want to have, you can have a big VIP one if the project that you are doing the crowdfunder for is like lends itself to it. But that was great.
Don't go and make loads of tote bags or anything.
Yeah. Also be careful of, I guess, what you're investing in a way, like for the rewards, and if you have like shipping times and all kinds of things. Another question for you, Kay. So when you are thinking about launching a campaign for a product or service, probably that's a question valid for if you're doing a crowdfunding, or maybe even if you're not. But you showed us lots of good examples in terms of the content to create, maybe video, doing some stuff with influencers, doing some stuff with press and media. How do you kind of help your clients quantify the money that they invest versus the kind of return on investment? How do you help them with that, to know what kind of marketing budget to look at?
I think with that sort of content driven stuff, generally, see if it was day to day, it takes a long time to really see like an immediate, there's no immediate return on that. It's something about, it's that sort of brand value that's impossible to put like a figure on. That's why we really enjoy doing crowdfunding campaigns, because you can immediately put a figure on it, because you can be like, right, if we do this and this and this, you're going to get X amount of followers on Instagram, it's going to create this amount of people on Facebook, whatever. We've got a little calculator that we know the percentages that it'll convert for each, like approximately. And that's where you can start to see the value of it. But yeah, it's harder for probably like normal campaigns, but with the Kickstarter, so there's an definitive goal and a definitive end date for it.
Mm-hmm. I think that in general, probably it is a good tip for everyone to try and approach any kind of campaign, brainstorm or strategy with having clear goals in mind. And I think, yeah, if you are doing a crowdfunder, as you said, it's easier to say, okay, this is what we're kind of aiming for. So what can we offer that people could find interesting? But then even if you're running a normal campaign, you know, some of the metrics that Sarah was talking about are things you should have in mind. If you're investing X amount of money to build a website or to do a video or something, then you're hoping that you should have in your head, like, what does success look like? Mm-hmm. How many people am I hoping that they see? And then you can always talk around our network and you know, peers to see if your goals are realistic as well. Yeah. But talk to a professional. I'll come back to you, Kay. I have a couple of questions for Sarah. So, you know, Sarah, you were talking about, and it was really helpful to see this, what kind of like big brands are spending on average per month for advertising. What do you kind of recommend for a small organization who just wants to test the waters, like what could they start with, like for like one campaign with maybe the same ad set over several audiences or something like that?
Yeah, sure. I would always start with something quite small. So maybe allocate 30 to 60 pounds just to write it off for testing alone, just to start to see how things are going. There's so many variables in a campaign. The main one to get right, I would always say that's always hardest, is audience, especially if you're running colder campaigns to new eyeballs. It's always harder to get that perfect audience. So a little bit of testing might be needed to get that. The companies I still feel a wee bit workforce sometimes will still struggle to get good audiences, and that's after experience. So maybe start with a certain amount of budget, maybe up to £100, and just think, right, we're going to take £100 this month, and we're just going to start trying to build an audience. If you already have traffic to your website, you put your pixel in place, and you can see you're getting really quite good traffic. You already have an audience there to retarget, so that is money you can put towards a campaign that's more likely going to work straight away. So that could be a budget of maybe the same amount of money, and you could compare both and just see how they both do. If you're retargeting people who already seen your products, you're more likely to convert them through that ad. So depends on your approach. You can start with a cold audience, but you can also start with a retargeting campaign if you already have traffic for that.
That's a good tip. And I'm going to go in with a newbie question now, but is it tough to install that Facebook pixel? Can you tell us a little bit more about it and how it works?
Yeah, sure. It depends on your website provider. Most of the big guys like WordPress, Shopify will have quite easy ways of literally copying a bit of code and pasting it into a box. It's very, very simple. Whereas other sort of niche website builders might not have as easy a process, but the good news is they all have their own process. So they will all have a section on the back end of your website to put in a Facebook pixel, whether that's in a box in the admin or within a certain part of the code on the website. But even that, for someone who's not comfortable with doing it, they normally give quite straightforward instructions, which is good.
Okay, well, that's good to know. And so essentially, you put that invisible kind of pixel on your site, and it's able to tell you all the visitors that came from Facebook, really.
What it does is it gathers all your audience in total, so that you can retarget them later with a Facebook ad. So you'll be able to go into your Facebook ad account and see how many clicks you're getting on your website, just like you would in analytics, for example. Mm-hmm. And you'll be able to see even at what stage they are getting on your website. If they are viewing a category, if they're viewing a product, you can even see if this is for people who are abandoning their carts. So you can run an ad just for people who are abandoning their carts, and that's going to hopefully convert at a higher rate as well. So it's all it's great the things you can do with that pixel.
Okay, sounds really good and quite sophisticated actually then. So you can make sure that the ad money that you're spending is really like kind of targeted to the right people or the right action, and you're showing them the right content as well.
Yeah.
And this leads me nicely into my next question, which is for both of you. We had a few questions about audience. So, Kay, you said, think about your audience, like what are kind of like their motivations, who are they? Try to start from the basics and go towards, a kind of more tailored kind of profile. And obviously, Sarah, you explained that when you are building an ad, there are a lot of different kind of criteria that you can pick. So I guess the question is, how do you find out about kind of like what are your audience interests? How can you kind of establish those profiles?
I do it in a very unscientific way, so I would be really interested to see how Sarah does it, and I'll tell you briefly how I do it, because I saw a good question in the chat about, if you've got quite a broad audience, how do you start to narrow that down? And the way that I think about it is I like to try and imagine it as an individual person. So I think about all the different things that make people similar but also different from the others. So for instance, I think the question was about mental health, and so I would think about, there's mental health is quite a broad subject. Is there parts of it in particular that you can support with? Does that particular thing affect a certain segment of that audience? So the most effective campaigns are the ones that target very specific things and very specific people. So if you then understand that that is men aged 18 to 20 who live in inner city areas, then you're already starting to narrow that down. So then there's that sort of part that's the scientific demographic part that then I like to add a little bit of fairy tale on top, and that's a bit of like surmising what their interests might be, beyond like what else is going on in their lives. So is it, with the mental health example, like, are they working or are they unemployed? Are they exploring the arts? There's sort of certain types of person that you can kind of start to build an idea of who they actually are. So it's like a mix of these sort of storytelling and demographic data on top is how I would approach it.
I think actually that makes sense. And as you explained it, I was kind of seeing this like even from the mental health point of view, how you could be, let's say that you're selling like coaching for mental health or something like that. I can see how you can be like, okay, the same product or service can be maybe for moms who are lonely in the year after they've had their baby and they're staying at home, and what are they going to be most likely to read, or how are they feeling, what content would resonate with them, versus maybe someone who is older or even lives in a rural area, and then you would share something different. And then as you said, so I see it as you say it. It's like sorting out a little bit through what you know and asking yourself questions.
Like sifting, like putting it through a sieve, just thinking like, here's all the different things that are interested in. And that's such a good example. Like loneliness, for instance, is a mental health problem, but it affects all these different groups. So it's kind of doing it that way. And now say that I'm desperate to know how you do it.
Yeah.
I think most brands and companies that I'll do work with will already have their like personas sort of built out. But for someone who's maybe just started and they know they want to target a certain maybe gender or something like that, even look, if you started to build an audience on Facebook and Instagram, you just look at your insights, see what you've got so far. I was always quite surprised at the split of gender on my own. I just thought, I'm just creating content for millennial women. Well, 20% of my audience is still male. Quite interesting stats. So I always go back to where you might already have a bit of an audience. These people have already engaged with you, so they're more likely to be your audience. Same with Google Analytics. If you already have a website, but you're just like, oh, I'm not really sure who my audience is at this point, you can look at all your data there, your demographics. But if you really are starting from scratch, it just comes down to who does your product benefit, and why does it benefit them? What's unique about that product that's going to attract someone? And I'll always get clients to go and do research on the internet, basically. So whether that's going to be on Answer the Public to look for keyword inspiration for blog posts and topics, take this product and go out there and look and see what people are talking about, and you'll quickly be able to see if that audience is resonating with that topic or product. Things like Facebook groups are good as well for doing a wee bit of research if you're not sure. So I kind of just take it from a small basic point and then just use some different platforms to back it up a little bit.
That makes sense. And when you are literally building the ad, Sarah, so is it that literally, newbie question again, sorry, but are you literally putting keywords in, or is it like that you need to have some Facebook pages that people might be following at the ready, or how does this interest thing kind of work?
Yeah, interest is fascinating on Facebook ads. So you can target people who are students. You know, are they working? Are they not working? What are they earning? What Facebook pages do they like? What shows do they watch? What other websites are they interested in? So I have a client who sells menswear. So his Facebook ads might target men who read GQ, who might, be interested in similar things like this, that they read certain blogs, they read Hypebeast, we're going to show them an ad for the latest sneaker or a new blog post. Like, those are going to relate. What I always say is you can start quite broad with your audience. I think as long as you have age, gender, location sort of down, you can play with that. And then as time goes on, you can add some more ads within one campaign to test that with interests and see how that goes.
That makes sense. Let me have a look. So on the retargeting and sort of like taking emails or profiles from one place to the next, how does that kind of work because of GDPR and everything? So I guess with the pixel for Facebook, that's kind of already built in. But let's say that you are, I don't know, running a giveaway on Instagram, and you have like a certain amount of people who like follow or tag or something as part of this campaign. Can you reuse that audience?
Yes, you can to an extent. The good thing about GDPR and Facebook ads is you can run a campaign for what we call lead generation, which is basically a form that's already in Facebook, and they will always ask someone to opt in. So they will never put through something now that will not allow someone to check that box. So I think, so I ran something recently, and once I changed my copy around a little bit, I got 60% of people who clicked it to opt in, which was quite high. But that will work on the lead generation campaign. If you're just driving someone to sign up on a landing page, if that's MailChimp or another platform for email, they will do the same thing. So they will always make sure that you're ticking you want to opt in to receive emails, which actually makes your email list way more powerful. This person has chosen to be contacted by you, whereas in the past, it was already checked and they just were doing it, and then that's when you lose subscribers and all that stuff. So it's actually okay with Facebook ads, the GDPR bits now kind of.
Okay, that makes sense. So it is more about putting them directly through their own decision onto the right, like let's say MailChimp or whatever, rather than like pulling out an email list manually, and then putting them into your CRM or anything like that. That can be a bit more trouble. Okay,
yeah,
that makes sense. Let me quickly look through. So obviously, Kay, you gave us examples about like press and media, about influencers, about social media. If you're sharing your campaign to try and share as far and wide as possible. Someone was asking, kind of, is it okay or is it icky to like share, news about the same kind of crowdfunding campaign and the same assets on all of your platforms? Should you be doing that? Is that good practice, or are you kind of staggering things over time, or?
Sorry, I muted myself. I can get back on. No, I think the best piece of advice I can give on that is absolutely. I mean, what you would do is hopefully craft a campaign that isn't just about say, give me money. It's about, here's the story that I've got to tell, and here's all the different aspects of it. And by the way, I'm doing a crowdfunding campaign. And the other thing to remember is that other people aren't seeing your stuff as much as you think. That you're the one person that's seeing every piece of content that gets put out. Someone might not be on your website and on your Instagram. even on your Instagram, you could put 3 posts out a day and a person may only see one. It's not a, you know, people aren't seeing it as much as you are. So I think that's always a good thing to remember as well.
That makes sense. One last question, because I'm conscious that I've kept you guys for an extra 20 minutes.
Great, I could talk all night. It's been
this one, I guess, is a bit specifically about, you know, the social enterprises. You know, if you think about the kind of content that they would be creating, both generally about their brand. So from an awareness point of view, when you were explaining, Sarah, about the 3 different stages, but also maybe if they're selling a product or service, it still might be quite tied into their why, like the social or environmental mission that they have. So I guess I was wondering, would you both say that like that's an interesting part of the story? Julie saying I could listen all night. Yes, love that. Yes, how can the social enterprises play with this why that they have and this like kind of particular mission, even when they're doing ads, even when they're doing a crowdfunder?
Do you want to answer, Sarah?
I guess it's just about, again, thinking about what the benefit is, like what is it you want to talk about at a certain stage of the campaign. You know, if you're warming someone up to your brand, like you said, you're not going to just talk about you in the campaign. You're going to talk about things that are probably important to your brand, your values. What else would that person be interested in? So I'd link it back to that to give you ideas about, well, here's the start, here's where we're launching, we're going to warm up the audience here, we're talking about this here, but then we're starting to mix more of here's a campaign in between. I guess it all comes back to the audience and what they're interested in and what makes sense for your brand, really.
And I'd also say, like, quite often, like with the kind of businesses that we work with, we're trying to find their why. That's like a big stage of like the first thing that we do with them is like, well, why does this exist? Who is it serving? What's it for? And, you know, if you've already got that, then you're in a really powerful position.
That's nice. So social enterprises have a head start. Yes. I like that. That's great. And it is linked, but what if you are in the kind of tricky position that the project or the campaign that you're trying to launch is not exactly like your audience, that is the people maybe trying to help you make it happen and pay for it, and the people who are going to benefit from it are not exactly the same. So to give you like, let's have an example, but maybe I don't know, maybe you are trying to launch a magazine that is gonna have interesting, diverse voices in one specific area of maybe, you know, Glasgow, but you're trying to do a crowdfunder through like the whole of Glasgow and the Clyde to get people to help you bring this magazine to life.
That's so interesting, because I've seen and been in that situation so many times. And in fact, there's a crowdfunding campaign that I've seen and know that they've worked on it for years, and it's a device for kids, and it's like a little pen holder that helps kids with mobility problems to hold a pen and draw. So straight away, not everyone has that issue or knows a child that has that issue, but there's something that people want to get behind there, because creativity, we all know, is really important. It's great for mental health. It's great for so many things. And so getting into that story and why that's important, and then feeding into that. So actually the creativity angle is the important thing there. And so then therefore it's reaching out to people who promote that themselves. And also there'll be other social enterprises and charities who are in that space as well, who have a network that you can kind of tap into. And that's this spin. It's like, well, what is it that appeals to those people that makes them want to take part?
Yeah. A lot of parents as well will be interested in supporting that, I'm sure. That's another big demographic that would be able to branch off and support it.
Totally. Like, and that's another issue as well. Like with crowdfunding, I mentioned the gadget kits for kids. It's like Facebook, and you've got to be over a certain age, you've got to be able to have a debit card and everything like that. So even if it's a kid's product, you're still marketing it to the parents. So it's all about what parents care about rather than just what kids care about.
Okay, well, that's great. And I think we're ending on a positive note there, thinking that social enterprises have, they're ahead of the game. They already have a good story to tell. So it is just about being conscious of who your audience is, what are their motivations, how can you flesh out a profile for them to target them, whether it's through content, through PR, through ads, and then testing is what I'm also, learning from this webinar. So thank you so much to both of you for taking the time and sharing all of these great insights and tips. And I think it was a great way to wrap up the bootcamp. So really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Jessie. It's brilliant.
That's great. Have a good evening, everyone. And thank you all for joining the bootcamp. And we'll be in touch soon.
Okay, first question. If you had an idea for a project that's potentially big, is it best to start small and build up and do the crowdfunding in stages? Or is it better to launch an ambitious crowdfunder the first time? Two things. Sometimes people will start and do a pilot project, a modest one to build their skills. But most of the time people just jump in. My main advice is the scale of the project when setting your target is down to the size of your network. If you only have a few followers, you're not going to raise £1 million. So let me give you a few rules of thumb to help you with the numbers. You know that, first of all, Facebook, only a small percentage of your actual followers on Facebook get to see any posts that you put up. So the average Facebook posts that you might put, maybe 4% of your Facebook followers will see it. If you've got a video, or if it's really interactive, that can go up to 6%. So the important thing to know is that just because you put a post about a new crowdfunding project on Facebook, it doesn't mean that everybody's going to get to see it. So that's one reason why we said people use a variety of media. I'll talk about that later in relation to one of the other questions. But if you want to make sure that you need as many people as possible to see any promotion that you're doing. So say you have about 1,000 people that you know are interested in your project. For a start, the people that know you better are more likely to pledge. But right across all the projects that we run, we find that on average, for every 20 people that land on your crowdfunder page, about one will pledge there and then. The other 19 will tootle off and do something else. One of the reasons for that is 2/3 of people will look at your crowdfunder page on a handheld device. So they could be on the bus, they could be in the middle of their tea, they could be in the office. So you've got a good chance of getting those 19 people back. But if you allow for the fact that about the conversion rate is about 5%, or 1 in 20 people who come to your page, bear in mind that some of these people will have never heard of you in your life. They could be people who have seen you through a Facebook advert. Another useful figure is when it comes to just straightforward donations, if you have a page where you're just asking for money, the average amount that people will pledge is something like £12. When it comes to rewards-based crowdfunding, the average amount is around somewhere between £40 and £50. So again, that's giving you some figures. 1 in 20 people, average amount is 40 quid. So when you're sitting, working out what size of project to put together, the first question you have to ask yourself is, do I have the network to hit that target? And you can put adverts out on Facebook or whatever to tell people about your project. But just because when you're going out to people you don't know, they're going to be that less likely to donate compared to people that you actually do know or are personal contacts. Second question, do you have any recommendations when it comes to rewards? Do you see any trends as to what people buy the most in terms of price range or type of rewards? I suppose the best way to become an armchair expert in crowdfunding is to go on to our page and just have a really good nosy. If you go to crowdfunder.co.uk, at the top of the page, you can explore, and that way you can get to explore all of the 250,000 projects that we've had over the years. You'll very quickly get a feel for what people go for. To be honest, a lot of people will come in at the 20 to 30 quid mark on rewards. But I've seen other projects where they've gone higher. It really depends on, sometimes it's the geographical area, sometimes it's the nature, it's a higher end product. But if you go in and have a look on that database, you'll see projects that are kind of similar to yours and you'll get a very good feel for it. In terms of rewards, people do like to go for ones that are, if it's quirky, something that they can't get on the high street, something that captures their imagination, they really like that. People also love to get value for money, a bargain. So in the run up to Christmas, November is the perfect time to launch rewards on a crowdfunder type project if you can guarantee that they can get them in time for Christmas, especially this year with a lot of people avoiding the high street. Third one is, how important is it to tell your why on crowdfunder? And this person said, for social enterprises, the impact is a big part of what they do and whether they sell a product or a service. The why bother is massive. That's the first thing that's going to flit through somebody's mind when they look at your page. It's all about, crowdfunding is all about storytelling and presenting what you're doing is something vital that your supporters can make happen. All fundraising is problem solving. It's about saying to people, I have this idea, this project, it's a new business. But the problem is that I don't have enough money quite to make it happen. So now you're kind of raising their stress level, saying, I've got a great idea, but I've got a problem. And then you say, but the solution is you can come in and help me to do this by doing X, Y, and Z. And so, yeah, it's a good question. It's all about the why bother. Third question, that was the third. Fourth, what can you do if the project you want to set up is not directly benefiting the people that you're hoping to get support from? Well, to be honest, with crowdfunder, we get, and a lot of our projects that come in have got a charitable basis. A lot of our projects are about, crowdfunder is all about doing good in society. So we get a lot of people who come in for philanthropic reasons. Say somebody wanted to set up, what we don't get is when somebody wants to maybe build a drone and they want to scale this up and manufacture it, they'll maybe go to Indiegogo or one of the other platforms. It's all about technology and sales. Whereas if somebody wanted to develop a drone that was going to do medical deliveries in remote areas, they're more likely to come to us. So we get a lot of those types of projects. In this scenario, you're asking the crowd to help fund something that they value and that they believe in. They want to help this thing to happen. We get a lot of these. And even in projects where they have wonderful creative rewards on offer, it's not unusual to see a big chunk of the money come in as donations. You can have up to maybe 75% on donations, even if they've got absolutely cracking rewards. So, and a good example of that is the Burnham Arts project that I helped coach recently. They had absolutely brilliant rewards, but a lot of the money they got in was donations because people just thought it's a good project, I want it to happen. Okay, how to plan your rewards if you have a wide audience with different profiles between your partners, advocates, customers, and beneficiaries? Yeah, good question. That's actually a really good scenario to have. And the first answer is make sure that you have variety in terms of your rewards. Sometimes you see projects and the rewards are all a variation on a theme. So the starting point, to come back to some of the other speakers covered, is you start by segmenting your crowd and ask what drives them, what kind of reward might appeal to them. It's just like any kind of marketing for your business. You put yourself in the shoes of your customers and ask what problems are they facing, just as human beings. So at the minute, it could be they're sitting going, God, I have to do my Christmas shopping, or what am I going to do with the children at the weekend? Or it could be they're concerned about the environment. They'll have, try and work out what problems your customers are facing and see if your rewards can be easy solutions for them. So another easy first step could be, once you've worked out who your crowd is, that's segmenting, you could go and find a few people who are typical of your variety of stakeholders and ask them what kind of reward they'd like to see offered. Or if you've got a list in your head, ask them what's missing. So personally, I usually start with finding a project that's kind of similar to what I've got in mind. And I snaffle their ideas. It's all about copying good ideas and then build on it. Look at what I like in their project and what I don't like and take it further. So that's how I would plan those rewards. Number 6, how can you help people to find your project? and how often should you be promoting your crowdfunder? Yeah, it's all about marketing. If you can do the best project in the world, best project page, but if you aren't marketing it properly, nobody's going to know about it. So one thing is to come up with a catchy name. I see a lot of projects and I can't remember the name, and come up with a marketing plan. A good one, just thoroughly plan ahead exactly what you're going to do, so that you can see in advance, you know what you're going to be doing. It takes the stress and the risk out of it. We have a template, a marketing template that we hand out to people that we work with. And one of the main things is you've hopefully worked out who your crowd is, from what I said earlier. And your question in every case is, where do they get their news from? And that helps you to target your marketing. And your question is, how do you get the information about your project into that particular news feed? And then how do you make it really easy for the people to share what you've just given to them? So we generally say start promoting your project about 2 weeks before you launch. Use a wide variety of media. Facebook is great for cutting across the different age groups, and it's also really good for being able to easily share your link. Instagram is really good as well for particularly businesses, especially if you're a highly visual business. Twitter is good for letting people know that you exist. People don't generally donate from Twitter, but it's enough to start creating a buzz. LinkedIn can be really good if you want your professional contact to know, if you want other organizations or companies to start being interested in you and maybe sharing your posts. Word of mouth and phone calls is one of the most effective ways of letting people know about your project. Targeted emails, you never do the generic ones, always make sure they're short, to the point, and say to people, would you mind sharing the information about our page? And if you'd like to donate, then great, but don't put them on the spot or make them feel uncomfortable. Bear in mind that you'll have people of all different age groups that might want to support your project. A lot of people aren't really into social media or the internet, especially if they're a wee bit older. They might want a variety of media. So in our area around here, we'd also go for the local newsletters, community newsletters, go through every door. They can be really effective. I've seen leaflet drops work well, and posters in good places that people stand still, like bus stops. Business cards can work, like Burnham Arts, when they ran one recently. Everybody who got a coffee got a little business card that had the link to their crowdfunder page and said what they were doing. Local radio and regional newspapers tend to be more effective than national. The national ones are good for telling people you're there, but they don't really translate into many donations. So we'd say tend to go for local ones. And we also advise that you go for them once you're about halfway through your project. They hear of a lot of projects that are starting up. A lot of them in general won't get off the ground. So once you're halfway through or you've hit a milestone, you now have a good news story. And those bloggers or journalists need a constant stream of good stories, and they will want to kind of bask in the reflected glory of your project. So yeah, use everything you can think of, different means. Last question. How long should you plan to run your crowdfunder for? And follow up, should you plan additional goals in advance if you meet your goals? And what do you need to do to prepare for that in terms of content and comms on your crowdfunder page? We generally recommend 4 weeks to run a crowdfunder. And we've just found that is the sweet spot over time, because crowdfunding is designed to be a short, sharp intervention. We find if people run a project longer than that, they don't, longer projects don't necessarily bring in more money. What you'll find when you've run a successful crowdfunder, after 4 weeks, you will be sick and tired of hearing about it and looking at it, and so will all the people you know. So we recommend just really concentrate it in the 4 weeks. In terms of goals, yes, we setting additional goals. Yeah, a rule of thumb we use is it's better to set a modest, achievable target that you're pretty sure you can achieve, and hit that. And you're better off to do that than to set a really ambitious target with lots of zeros and to not hit it, because then it reflects very negatively on you. So we always would say set a target, and then when you hit that, you've now got a good news story. You've got a platform for you to even go big, even bigger and even better. Just think ahead what you're going to do. Just have a bit of a strategy. Another thing we always say to people is you never launch with nothing, with zero in the bag. We always say to people, when you're coming up with your plan, your strategy, make sure you've warmed some people up in advance, the people most likely to donate, and say to them, would you come in early? So the day you go live, you can go in with a bang at having hit 10 to 20%, and you'll get people nosy to see what the fuss is all about. So yeah, this way you can just, it's all about making your project attractive and excitement and buzz. So hopefully that has answered all your questions. And I haven't spoken too quickly. And if you've got any other questions, just drop me a line. It's just brenda@crowdfunder.co.uk. Okay, cheerio.